I will talk today about the Italian colonization of Libya. Look at the map of the Mediterranean. See that strategic coastline directly south of Italy, the land now known as Libya. For centuries, it was a jewel coveted by empires. But in the early 20th century, a newly unified and ambitious Italy decided it would be theirs. They called it their fourth shore. What followed was not just a colonial occupation, but a brutal and often forgotten chapter that reshaped Libya's destiny, featured some of the first uses of modern aerial bombardment, and created a legacy of trauma and resentment that echoes to this day. This is not just about dates and treaties, but it is about empire, resistance, and the devastating human cost. Italy, unified in 1861, arrived late to the scramble for Africa. It was a nation plagued by a sense of inferiority, watching Britain and France carve out vast empires. Italian nationalists dreamed of spazio vitale, living space, and a return to the glory of the Roman Empire. North Africa, once Rome's granary, was the obvious target. Tunisia was the first goal, but France snatched it in 1881. Humiliated, Italy turned its gaze to the Ottoman provinces of Tripolitania, Cyrenaica, and Fezzan, a vast, mostly desert territory. Through diplomacy, Italy secured reluctant blessings from other European powers. Then, in September 1911, they found their pretext and issued an ultimatum to the fading Ottoman Empire. When it expired, Italy declared war. The Italo-Turkish War in 1911 and 1912 was the first major war to see the use of airplanes for reconnaissance and even dropping small bombs. Italian forces captured coastal cities like Tripoli, Benghazi, and Tobruk, but their advance inland was met with fierce resistance. This was not just an Ottoman army, it was a joint effort. Ottoman officers like Enver Pasha teamed up with local Libyan leaders, most significantly a religious scholar from Cyrenaica, Sayyid Ahmad al-Sharif. Together they organized a powerful guerrilla campaign. The Italians, expecting an easy victory, were shocked by the staunch defense. The war revealed Italy's military weaknesses, but ended with the Ottoman Empire, beset by the Balkan Wars, ceding sovereignty in the 1912 Treaty of Auchi. Crucially, they did not grant Libya to Italy, but they left it in Italy's hands while the Libyans themselves were never consulted. So, with the Ottomans formally gone, the true Libyan resistance began, and it found its most iconic leader in Omar al-Mukhtar. A teacher of the Quran and a shrewd military tactician, al-Mukhtar became the leader of the Cyrenaican guerrilla forces. For nearly 20 years, he commanded a relentless desert war. His forces, drawn largely from the Senussi Muslim order, used their knowledge of the desert to launch lightning attacks on Italian outposts and supply lines before vanishing into the landscape. Italy controlled the coast, but the interior was Mukhtar's. He was not fighting for a nation-state in the modern sense, but for faith, freedom, and his people's way of life against a foreign Christian invader. Everything changed in 1922. Benito Mussolini and the Fascists seized power in Italy. For Mussolini, Libya's incomplete conquest was an embarrassment. He sent his most ruthless general, General Graziani, to finish the job. What followed was not a war, but a pacification, a euphemism for genocide. Graziani's strategy was total war against the entire population. He created concentration camps. Over 100,000 people from Cyrenaica, perhaps half the population, were forced into a network of barbed wire camps in the desert. Starvation, disease, and systematic neglect killed an estimated 40,000 to 70,000 people. The Italians also set up a barbed wire fence. A 300-kilometer barrier along the Egyptian border was erected to cut off resistance supply lines, patrolled by planes and armored vehicles. Italians also carried out mass executions and atrocities. Public hangings were common. In 1931, Italy sealed the conquest by capturing the 73-year-old Omar al-Mukhtar. After a show trial, they executed him by hanging in front of thousands of his imprisoned people. It was meant to break their spirit. It made him a martyr. With resistance brutally crushed, Mussolini could now realize the original dream. In the 1930s, Libya was officially merged into Italy as part of the national territory, the Fourth Shore. A massive infrastructure project began. Modern roads, like the Litorania, railways, and elegant Art Deco buildings in Tripoli. But this was not for Libyans. This was for settlers. Tens of thousands of Italian colony were brought over, given the best farmland, often confiscated from Libyans, and lived in modern villages. Libya was to be an extension of Italy. Libyans were relegated to second-class status, subject to segregation and harsh racial laws, especially after 1938. The colonial vision was clear: replace, not develop, the native population. Libya's strategic location made it a central battleground in World War II's North African campaign. The sweeping tank battles between Rommel and Montgomery raged across its deserts. For Libyans, the war presented a complex dilemma. Some hoped an Allied victory might end Italian rule. Indeed, after the Axis defeat in Africa in 1943, Italy's colonial project collapsed. The territory fell under British and French military administration. The question became, what next? A long post-war diplomatic struggle, led by Libyan leaders like Idris al-Senussi, the future King Idris, finally resulted in independence. On December 24, 1951, the United Kingdom of Libya was born, the first country to achieve independence through a United Nations resolution. So, what is the legacy of this 30-year colonial period marked by such profound violence? Demographic and architectural. Italy left a physical imprint, churches, boulevards, and farms that still dot the landscape, a complicated heritage. Trauma and national identity. The memory of the resistance, especially Omar al-Mukhtar, became a foundational pillar of modern Libyan nationalism, used later by Muammar Gaddafi to legitimize his anti-Western regime. Unbuilt nation. Italy's policy of underdeveloping Libyans and focusing only on settler needs left the new state with a crippling lack of educated elites, infrastructure for all, and deep internal regional divisions. The unresolved past. Unlike other European powers, Italy has been slow to formally acknowledge the atrocities of its colonialism. Reparations, official apologies, and a full reckoning with this history remain points of tension between the two countries. The migration irony. Today, Libya is a major transit point for migrants from Africa trying to reach Italy. The former colonizer now struggles with migration from the lands it once sought to occupy, a tragic and complex reversal of historical flows. The Italian colonization of Libya is a stark case study in the extremes of settler colonialism and fascist ideology. It reminds us that colonialism was not just economic exploitation. It could be a project of population replacement and extermination. It shows how resistance can forge a national identity and how unaddressed historical crimes can linger for generations. Understanding this story is crucial to understanding modern Libya, its strengths, its fractures, and its place in the Mediterranean world. It is a history of a fourth shore that was always and remains distinctly and resiliently Libyan. Thanks for watching. What other lesser-known colonial histories would you like us to explore? Let us know in the comments below. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more dives into history. Thank you!